It's April 2nd, 2018, and it's time to review 5 of the most outrageous, infuriating, or just plain baffling things that have happened lately. It's your Facepalm 5. Let's count them down. Number 1. Congressman mocks Parkland shooting survivor following protest march. The push for reforming America's gun laws being led by the young survivors of the Parkland shooting must be accomplishing something, because the NRA and its groveling toadies in the Republican Party are attacking the Parkland survivors at every opportunity. Just last week, Fox News host Laura Ingraham ridiculed David Hogg for not being accepted into UCLA. She's been losing sponsors ever since, so hey, silver lining. But an even nastier attack came earlier in the week on the Facebook page of Republican Congressman from Iowa, Steve King. Someone, King's office tells the Washington Post it was someone on the campaign team, posted this meme attacking Emma Gonzalez, one of the most outspoken of the Parkland survivors. "This is how you look," the meme reads, "when you claim Cuban heritage yet don't speak Spanish and ignore the fact that your ancestors fled the island when the dictatorship turned Cuba into a prison camp after removing all weapons from its citizens, hence their right to self-defense." That image of Emma Gonzalez was taken from her speech during the March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C., where her speech lasted only as long as the Parkland shooting and consisted largely of a sustained, minutes-long moment of silence. And Steve King, or someone on his campaign staff, decided to respond to that powerful testimony of grief and determination by inciting his followers to taunt and harass that amazing young woman. The masks are off, folks. These people are showing us exactly who they are. The only question now is, what are we going to do about it? There's an election in 7 months. Number 2, Santorum proposes CPR training instead of gun control. And elections can make a big difference. Ain't that right, Rick? Former Senator Santorum appeared on CNN a little over a week ago to accuse the Parkland survivors of supporting phony gun laws instead of taking responsibility for their own problems. Santorum suggested that they take CPR classes instead, so they're better able to respond when a shooter goes on a rampage. Plenty of people responded to Santorum, pointing out that CPR would be of little or no help to people whose internal organs had been shredded by bullets. But to me, the worst aspect of Santorum's response, and the part he did not apologize for when he retracted his CPR suggestion a few days later, was his chiding of the Parkland students and others for trying to do something to solve the problem of gun violence rather than accepting it as a permanent fact of life and trying to deal with it. Santorum referred to people becoming more involved in the political process as looking to someone else to solve their problem. Asshole, 30,000 gun-related deaths a year and as many mass shootings as there are days in the year, every year, is everyone's problem. Just like you were everyone's problem when you were in the Senate. Hey, and we can solve this problem the same way we solved that one. How about that? Number 3, teacher suspended for discussing sexual orientation with students. Last week, the Dallas Morning News reported that Stacy Bailey, an art teacher at an elementary school in Arlington, Texas, had been suspended since September for discussing her sexual orientation with her students. And when I say discussing her sexual orientation with her students, I mean mentioning the fact that she isn't hetero. The school district claims Bailey was suspended for disrupting the educational environment and ignoring administration guidelines for age-appropriate conversations with students. However, Bailey's attorney says her suspension was the result of a complaint from only one parent, who was apparently upset that Bailey had shown students photos of herself and her family, including her wife, and introduced the students to the works of some gay artists. When I was in 2nd grade, my teacher, Miss Rice, had a boyfriend. He even came to class once to help out with a school function. She wasn't suspended. Oh, but I forgot. Us cis-heteros aren't supposed to be ashamed of our orientation. It's only LGBTQ folks who have the power to warp young minds by simply existing as who they are. What selfish people. Number 4, Ohio legislators introduce bill to ban abortion. So last week I was one of the guests on a podcast called Man Yells at News. The format of the show involves the host, Larry, and his guests each choosing 3 news stories to, yell about. And the other guest on the show with me that episode was Minette Richards, the president of Secular Woman, who was a guest on this channel a few weeks ago. And one of her stories was about this bill that Republicans just introduced in the Ohio state legislature. The bill, HB 565, would ban abortion in all cases and circumstances, including rape and incest. The bill is so far-reaching that even some on the pro-life side are stopping short of endorsing it. It's unlikely to pass, and even if it does, Ohio Governor John Kasich would probably veto it. Kasich is a Republican, but 2 years ago he vetoed the so-called heartbeat bill, which would have banned abortions after the fetus exhibits a measurable heartbeat, so it's doubtful he would support this legislation. But even if the bill did pass, and even if the governor did sign it, wouldn't it be unconstitutional? Isn't that what the Supreme Court decided with the Roe v. Wade case, that there is a constitutional right to have an abortion? Yes. And that might be the actual point of the bill. Sure, supporting an abortion ban, whether it ever becomes law or not, is a good way for Republican legislators facing re-election to pander to conservative voters. But if the bill became law, and its constitutionality were to be challenged, as it certainly would be, it could find itself before the U.S. Supreme Court, giving the court an opportunity to overturn Roe v. Wade. In other words, those people 2 years ago who were saying, don't vote for Donald Trump no matter what, if for no other reason than to keep him from appointing Supreme Court justices, were right. And if you didn't listen to them, you should have. And if Americans lose access to safe, legal abortions in the next few years, it'll be partially your fault. Live with it. And now it's time for the segment devoted to some of the things Donald Trump has done recently to disgrace the presidency and embarrass and/or endanger the United States and the rest of the world. It's number 5, the further misadventures of Lord Dampnut. Please keep in mind, as always, the following is not a complete list. He issued a new directive to ban transgender people from serving openly in the military, his second attempt at instituting such a ban, just in case anyone doubted his commitment to using the government to impose his small-minded prejudices on as many marginalized people as possible. He fired his Secretary of Veterans Affairs, which he announced via Twitter, of course, and said he would nominate White House Dr. Ronnie Jackson to fill the position. Jackson is a Rear Admiral in the U.S. Navy, a decorated veteran who served in the Iraq War, but is hardly the first name that jumps to mind as a possible VA Secretary. It's almost as if Trump simply decided to nominate the first person he saw in a military uniform, but that's just silly. The real reason is probably that Trump wants to privatize the VA and figures Jackson, who is widely respected but has no significant management experience, will be easier to steer in the direction Trump wants him to go. Moving on, the New York Times reported last week that the Trump administration is preparing to drastically roll back automotive fuel economy and emissions standards, rescinding the most significant measures the United States has taken to combat climate change. On Thursday, Trump gave a speech where he said vocational schools were better than community colleges because he didn't know what community college means. In the United States, community colleges, sometimes called junior colleges, technical colleges, two-year colleges, or city colleges, are primarily two-year public institutions providing lower-level tertiary education, also known as continuing education, granting certificates, diplomas, and associate degrees. After graduating from a community college, some students transfer to a four-year liberal arts college or university for 2 to 3 years to complete a bachelor's degree. By the way, I got that from the Wikipedia article on community colleges. It took me 20 seconds to find it. Just saying. Trump also issued a proclamation declaring April to be National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The proclamation read in part, quote, "Sexual assault crimes remain tragically common in our society, and offenders too often evade accountability." You don't say. That's 5. Speak out, act out, resist, look after each other. Hey folks, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this one. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel for as little as $1 a month, but if you pledge a little bit above and beyond, say $5 a month or higher, you get yourself a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5, just like my newest $5 plus per month patron, Maddie Dietrich. Thank you, Maddie, so much for becoming a patron. Thanks to all of you for being patrons at whatever level you are donating. Thanks to all of you for watching, whether you're patrons or not, for all of your support in whatever form it takes. And I'll see you next time.